Shabbat Shalom, my friends. Welcome home to our ongoing Torah conversations. These have been exceedingly difficult weeks, we know that. Too much pain, too much loss, too many threats, not nearly enough caring, not nearly enough really listening, not nearly enough hugs. But when we gather together to study Torah, it's like building a Sukkat Shalom, a tabernacle of peace. A Sukkat Shalom isn't a place to hide from what's going on out there. It's a place for the deepening and strengthening and reinforcing of what's going on in here. Conversations about Torah have been a safe place for the Jewish people for more than the last 2,000 years. And thank God, so it continues to be. Okay, so now we enter the Sukkat Shalom, the Sukkah of Peace, and we immediately find conflict. After all, we're in the book of Genesis, and Genesis is famous for laying out all of the dysfunctionality of human families, the stress, the pain that comes with it. No big surprise. Our Sedra is Vayetze. Beginning today, our particular section will be Genesis chapter 30, verse 1 and following. Jacob has now matured. He's an adult. He wanted to marry Rachel, but ended up marrying Rachel's sister Leah first, and then he married Rachel. He also had two, shall we delicately refer to them as, handmaidens. And soon children were born to Leah, to Zilpah, to Bilhah, but not to the beloved Rachel. The tensions in the tents of Jacob were ready to hit an explosive level. Rachel is deeply unhappy. She's probably very jealous as well. The text makes clear that a full-blown rivalry had emerged. Rachel feels inadequate and disfavored. It can't be his fault, she thought, because he's constantly proving that he can sire children. So it's my fault. It's got to be my fault. And I don't understand. I just don't understand. So Rachel in our text turns to Jacob and says to him, "Let me have children, otherwise I am a dead woman." Rashi jumps right in and says that Rachel would literally have died from grief if she had remained childless. Other commentators even went further and said that Rachel, Imenu, our mother Rachel, was prepared to commit suicide. She was going to kill herself. Her life had lost all value, all purpose. She was, in her own eyes, a failure. And that loving Jacob, how did he respond? Quote, Jacob grew angry with Rachel and said, "Am I in place of God who has withheld from you the fruit of your womb?" Close quote. Let me be clear here. Absolutely, unequivocally clear. There is no way on earth that I could tolerate saying of someone else, "You can't bear children," because that's God's will. It is not God who makes a woman pregnant or who makes it impossible for women to bear children. There can be many reasons for infertility, but a decision by God is just not one of them, period. Okay, Jacob responds with anger. The rabbis try to understand why. One possibility. He was angry because Rachel, his wife, didn't understand how prayer works. Prayer doesn't guarantee an automatic and satisfactory response, and a phrase that probably last had meaning in the 1980s, God is not a cosmic bellhop. You just hit the prayer bell and God comes running. Tips are optional. That's not how it works, Rachel. Sincere prayer cannot ever force God to do anything. So loving Jacob criticized her theology as a response to her suffering, and then he yelled at her. How very helpful. Another commentator stated that Jacob felt personally insulted by Rachel. After all, Father Isaac had his prayers answered by God. So Rachel's infertility could be taken to mean that Jacob didn't match up to his own father in terms of his relationship with God. So of course Jacob was upset. Who wants to be pointed out that his father was a better man than he was? And yet another explanation is offered in a text known as Akedat Yitzchak. This approach I actually find to be fascinating. We are taught there that women have two supreme tasks in our world. One is to be full and equal partners with men. Even as men pursue moral and ethical and intellectual advancement, so it is the task of women to pursue moral and ethical and intellectual advancement. No difference here at all. Children of God. The Eshet Chayil, the woman of valor, is one who fulfills the skills and talents and interests she has while living a pious life of study and of prayer and of good deeds. But the Akedat Yitzchak says that there is a second, and in fact secondary task that women have. It is to bring new life into the world. Men are supposed to be fathers, women are supposed to be mothers. Chava, the Hebrew name for Eve, means the one who brings life. Jacob was angry because Rachel was turning her back upon the value of her primary task, that is to study, to perform acts of tikkun, to strengthen her personal spirituality, and doubling down on the significance of having children. Being a human being in a personal relationship with God is far more significant, said the Akedat Yitzchak, than becoming the mother of children. Rachel believed that if she couldn't bear children, then she was better off dead. In the words of Nechama Leibowitz, by doing this, by allowing herself to feel that way, Rachel was fleeing from her true destiny and from the primary purposes of her life. Very interesting. Might I add two parenthetic comments here first. There are some rabbis who simply had no patience for Jacob's response and who didn't want even to waste time excusing it. Jacob was accused by the rabbis of being a windbag who was more interested in making certain that no one thought that he bore any responsibility for Rachel's misery than in caring for her. Jacob was massively insensitive, some rabbis thought. And second parenthetic comment, I cannot begin to pretend to truly understand the emotions of a woman struggling to conceive. But being unable to do so, I can just know that that woman is not failing. But somehow, it's just not happening. I cannot put myself into her situation. But I can appreciate what the rabbis are trying to do here. They criticize Jacob and all of the Jacobs in the world who think that it's all and always about them. Those Jacobs watch another person in pain and somehow feel that really they're the ones who are the center of attention and not that other person. Those Jacobs suffer from what I delightfully term to be a metastatic narcissism that is, well, insufferable. They criticize Jacob and all the Jacobs in the world who somehow believe that yelling at another person is just the perfect way to fix whatever is troubling them. If there's a problem, yell. And they criticize Rachel for forgetting what it really means to be a child of God, made in the image of God. It is surely an infinitely rich, meaningful gift to be able to bring new life into our world. But more important, underlined, more important than that gift is the opportunity to fill our own lives with meaning, with purpose, yes, with holiness. To share love and companionship, to appreciate the beauties of nature, of music, of human creativity, to make a difference, to help a single other human being, to preserve our endangered environment, to lift our thoughts to the source of all meaning. For such purposes, life can always be satisfying and meaningful. So they taught. Why do I love the book of Genesis? So many reasons. Not the least of which is to learn from Rachel and Jacob as our people begins its journey into history. So, if you found our conversation within the Sukkat of Shalom today meaningful, please, hit share so that others might join us. See you next week, and may this coming week for all of us be a really much better week. Shabbat Shalom.